Hello everybody, it's Jack here. Welcome back to another video, and today we're finally doing the part 2 of the village redesign thing I did a couple months back. Because if you remember from that video, and if you watched that video, if not, the iCard will pop up and you can go watch it here. There were two villages on opposite sides of like this little frozen lake thing. So I decided I was going to do two different villages sort of connected in some way or another. So I'm finally getting down to the fact where I do the other village. And so, the last village was very rustic and farming based and very, sort of that kind of feel. And this village, I wanted it to be a mining village. So, I'm starting off by, I didn't really have a good feel for how to do the houses or anything, so I'm going to start off by making like this like little, I don't know, barrier around the bit pit, the mine area. So that way, nobody falls in, that sort of deal. I'll start off by doing that initially, since at this point I said I didn't have a good feel for what I was going to do for a village. Initially I thought the villages would be in very similar style. And so downstairs the houses will be very rusted, kind of like how you get it in your other, a village. Had a very, worn out feel and used sort of idea. But I think I kind of went in a different direction, but you'll see it later on. Currently I am attempting to make a crane. So I had an idea where like this crane to be on the top of this like little mountain thing and to be like lifting stuff in and out from from the cave, like supplies to be being lifted down or being lifted back up or something like that. So I am very much struggling currently with how the crud do you build a crane in Minecraft. And let me tell you, I'm here for a little while trying to figure that out. But in the end I think it looks pretty good. It just takes me a little while to get there. So, we're going to be building that for a little while. This was the only thing I had envisioned for, like, in way of what this place was going to look like. It's like, I knew I wanted there to be, like, the little railing around the cave that they were working in, and, like, a pathway around it sort of idea. And I knew I wanted there to be, like, this crane, as I said, lifting up, supplies or delivering supplies down there, so that's the first thing I tackled, since that's the thing I had the clearest vision of for this. So, we're struggling very hard here. And like, I don't add in a lot of the footage for the other buildings, since I took a long time building this area, so there wasn't a ton of footage of me struggling with all the other buildings, but I wanted to add in that, like, I struggled with this entire town. Very much so, because I built it in a style which you will see in a little bit that is not my normal style. So it was very out of my comfort zone per se, and it was really difficult to build something out of my comfort zone. So I don't normally really build out of my comfort zone, So yeah, we quickly run through doing the crane. We're getting there slowly but surely. I'm getting there. There we go. See, now we're starting to look crane-like right now. Yeah, look at that. That's starting to look good. Now I'm doing I don't know, there's like on most of the references that I looked up, there's like weights on the one side of something to balance out the crane. So, there was that piece which we're not currently working on. We're currently working on using the chains. My god, I love the chains. Oh, and here's our little, supply, cargo platform. I don't know what you would call this. But it's very simple. Wood, cobblestone, and everything. Oh, and here's the weight. I built up the weight. I just did it out of cobblestone. Plenty of catchers. I built up this little house initially. And I hate it. I built up this other house initially, too. I also I guess I don't hate the houses, but they weren't what I was looking for. So I quickly moved on to doing something else. I went over into, like, front of the two cave areas that I was going to be working with to make, like, this little house that was, like, I don't know, like a reception area to be, like, lets you that lets you into the areas that you go mining. So that's sort of what this building is. I used a lot of deep slate, and I thought it would be fun if I did something very based off of like those container houses, you know what I'm talking about? Those very metal container houses. They're very they don't have a lot of shape to them, but they utilize a lot of like textures and stuff with them. So that's kind of what I was going for. So I used a mixture of the deep slate walls and the deep slate bricks and a lot of windows to try to get that texture and try to make it not look like just a block, like, just a singular little rectangle, which essentially the container houses kind of look like. But I said they utilize a lot of texture to try to give it some variety and crud. So that's what I was attempting to do very much here. And there's some very much so a lot of struggles during this. But I think in the end they turn out looking alright, really. See, add in some windows. As you can see, now the front door area does change to some blocks around it rather than having the walls because they don't connect the doors correctly. So that does change, but currently this is kind of what it's looking like. You got all the walls built up, and we're finally adding on the roof, adding in some like little, once again, some more rails around the roof and everything. Kind of looks like a mini castle sort of thing. It's fun, and I think that looks okay. And this is kind of what inspired the whole rest of the town, is to just go for the whole, like they made a whole bunch of container homes and they just plopped down right here. That's what I decided I was going to go for. This was an account that was made alongside when the Air Town was made. The Air Town has been there for years, and this is sort of a mining facility, sort of just popped up one day. They put a whole bunch of container homes here. They started their mining, and then they sort of made trading areas with the other town. And that's sort of what's going on here. They trade their mining materials for food and other resources that they need to survive. I've with the other townspeople, and that's sort of what I'm thinking. So I'm going to make like this cargo home that's sort of right here. This one I'm currently making is like one that's on like stilts partially. So this cargo home's made out of mainly quartz because I thought the quartz had a very similar texture to a lot of the ones I looked up. Specifically the quartz with the pillared quartz. So I'm going to use a lot of quartz, especially this specific one. But this one's going to have it be slightly propped up on like these leg things, and then there's going to be another like cargo home that's connecting to it that's like on the ground. So like they took two different like little cargo containers things. They took two little containers, and then they sort of merged them together, put one on stilts, put the other one there, and they added some stairs, and they called it a house. That's sort of what this one's going for. So you see I'm adding, the quartz has a lot more texture since there's just a lot more blocks in general to work with that I think go really well together. So then I use a lot of the stairs, slabs, the just normal quartz, the smooth quartz, and the pillars. And of course a lot of windows. Just when I was looking at references, in general, a lot of them had a ton of windows. There's very few of them that had like little to no windows. But a lot of them had an inordinate amount of windows, and they were very big windows from what it looked like to me. A lot of them had like these things around the door where it's like to me it looked like the iron bars, which is why I keep doing that. A lot of the references I looked up had that. I'm changing out the deep slate for some more quartz so it looks more fitting with the building, and I move on to building the house that's next door. It's this little tiny deep slate one. Now this one is from the reference I saw a reference of one that had like this I don't know, like some sort of texture outside the door, which is really what I was inspired by and why that was like the first thing that was built up right there. So I immediately go off and I do that, and I this one is also on stilts because I saw a lot of them being on stilts and I quite like that look, so I do that for like the first couple. I recognize these houses are really close together, but I was like, no, I think I kind of like them being close together. It makes it a little cramped over here and makes it feel more like a town rather than just, I don't know. I just kind of like that. I tried messing with the roof. I decided I hate the initial one. I started putting on a second one, and after staring at it, I decided I didn't like it, so I went ahead and I had like a little slope to the roof, and I decided I actually quite like that. It has a little tiny slope. I also extended this little house a little bit on either side. Right? Yep. And eventually I do extend it evenly on both sides, so that way the doors sort of just in the same sort of spot, still in the center, But I do extend the house a little bit side to side. It was just a little too cramped. So I go ahead and I do that, and bam, that house is done. And now we're moving on to the next house. This house, if I remember correctly, it was a 2-story house, and I was really inspired by this one. It's like the top of the house had like a wood on it and stuff. I don't remember what the reference was exactly. I was looking at actual storage container houses and whatnot. I'm staring this villager down. So I looked up actual reference. I don't remember if the actual reference had a wooden Like, I don't remember what it had that made me want to do this, but I know there's something about it that inspired this whole building to have 2 stories and one of them be wood. At this point, since this piece of footage was recorded quite a little while ago, then like, I don't currently remember, but I know the top part of the house was wood. I think that was inspired from something, from a reference. These houses are all based in some form of reality. I did this little fun thing with trapdoors going up the side of this house. Again, that was something in the reference. I just don't remember what. Honestly, so. I added some little stairs on the outside. Right, I added in some slabs for the doorway, because I always like the way like slabs and stairs look on doorways. I built up the sides with, again, a lot of windows. I'm losing my voice. Oh my god, I'm dying. Okay, I'm good. I'm putting in lots and lots of windows because, like, again, a lot of these storage container homes have a whole herd of windows. Then I think this piece I just built up once again more of this quartz pillar and some, of course, some more windows. Yes. Yeah. As I said, I really quite like the quartz pillar just because it looks a lot like how many of the references looked. And here's the wooden top floor of this. And I'm just going to stare at the bait. And I also get more of the more of those trapdoors on the back side, as y'all saw. I make this a little taller than what it was originally because it needed to be just a little taller. And then we add like a little spot for a door up here so that way there can be like a little balcony area. So I like that whole balcony area idea. I destroyed that, so I guess I didn't like it. I'm moving it over slightly. I guess that's better. I'm making that one, extending it a little bit. I'm adding more trapdoors on the back. I hate this. Okay. Do I hate those two? No, I don't. I add some stairs to get to the balcony area. I'm staring at it, debating, so I have struggles. And then I'm adding like these like little, I don't know, like these little waldings around the outside edge like that. I'm adding, of course, railings. And I also know I saw the deep slate walding that I did here. That was something from a reference that I sort of translated into Minecraft. So, and one thing I fussed around with like more trap doors on this side. Right on the edge left side of the building, I guess you'd say. And with that building was done. I started up building this other one, and this one was quite fun to see. It was literally half wood and half like quartz and stuff. And so, this was the first building I had done with this sort of like, it's half and half, but sort of mixed together. It's not like one floor is one material, one floor is another material. So this was quite fun to do, where they had sort of half and half. And this house actually has like a really quite a fun shape. I really like the shape of this house. I think it turned out really well. Going through adding in windows and stuff as I go. And I'm adding in lots and lots of wood. Because, like, you know, we gotta have it be half and half. So we're adding the wood, adding the quartz. And connecting up more quartz. I used, of course, spruce wood, one of my favorite woods. I really like spruce wood. It's nice and contrasts really well with the quartz since it's so much darker than it. So, I don't really know why I decided on having the quartz be mixed in with the wood window at the front and having the spruce log window in the back. But I mean, it's kind of fun. And I guess with, putting the railings on the top and everything, that house was done, essentially. At least from the outside. So I move on to this other house, which is partially quartz and partially deep slate. So I'm going through, I'm adding a lot of the, I think in general, I think this house was like, it's like mainly deep slate with like quartz touches. It's kind of what this one did. So of course I use building out the outline of this, building out the structure of the house, because that's kind of how I build. I do like an outline and then I sort of fill in as I go. I'm using, again, a lot of the walls that add that whole texture to it that a lot of those container homes have. And I'm filling in the roof with some quartz, adding in some little stairs to get up into the house. Adding in some little, like, I don't know, outside open, I don't know what those are. But again, that's something I saw in the reference, so I mimicked that in my storage container home, and I called that done. And I'm back up here, I'm destroying this house a little bit and replacing it with blocks I think will fit. This one remains partially deep slate and partially quartz. I decided to keep the same shape as it originally was, but just to, change it into the blocks that fit. Adding in more windows, and then with that, this house is done. we move along right across the street to make another house over here. And this house is another one, the one that was that is partially wood and partially quartz. Jeez, okay. It's not made of corpses, I swear. Please don't send the police on me. But see, I fill in the walls with quartz, and I also put in some wooden walls, and I add in some windows and crud. And this is actually the only house that I had a really tall window on. So, and I actually quite really like that. And I'm messing around with adding more, more of those, what are they called? Trapdoor sort of textures onto it. But I don't think I keep that. And I also try adding on a roof, a very simple sort of flat roof. Then I'm messing around with making the roof trapdoors. I don't keep that. I added in this little tiny porch and added a little light on the front, and with the door, with that was done. The roof is partially quartz and wood at this point anymore. And now I'm moving on again right across the street to, I believe, what is the final house, and this is a entirely deep slate house, and this is one of the biggest houses here. What I did was I wanted to make it be like, oh, there's one storage container on the ground, and there's another one going the opposite direction that's like stacked on top, and so then it makes like this little, like, it has a like covered area at the bottom, and then it has this I don't know, then it has like this little another balcony area. So I've seemed to be really into the balconies during this building area. For this like specific spot, I was really into the balconies. I don't know what was about them, but they were everywhere in my builds for this town. Everywhere. So, I continue on. I added more railings, of course. Add in the door. And with that house was done. I'm sorry you didn't see more process of the house, but that's how it is. So, I'm quickly digging out the area around on this little, I don't know what you call that. The little railing area to make pathways. And over here, this is the other sort of spot for the other mine. There's the two big mines, so this is the second biggest mine. And in general, when you look up a lot of mine pictures, you see kind of like how they're like flattened out around the place. So I wanted to mimic that by using pathway blocks to make it look like it was flattened, almost. Those by people who came in and started mining. So I quickly placed a whole herd of these. And with that, I continue placing this, driving myself crazy. I also added in a ladder down to the mine on this side, right there, and then I, make it with wood, cobblestone, add in some ladders, and I add in like some little stairs at the bottom to make it look like, it's actually stable. And there we go. Then I'm adding in the entire like rail safety area, like fenced in spot around the other mine. I'm finally doing that as well. Well, this takes me a little while to try to get shape right, but eventually I get there. And then after this, I kind of start adding in the pulsite. Well, I don't know what the crud this is called. Pulsite? The darker grass. I start adding a whole bunch of this to also kind of mimic the fact that it's a flattened area and give it some texture. So that was just not one note of the pathway blocks. As you see, I'm adding the pathway through this little, I'm adding pathway blocks through this pathway over to the other side of the mine, of the bigger spot of the mine. So after doing that, I decided at the end of that pathway, I would build up an elevator leading to the crane. So I quickly build up an elevator, adding in glass with quartz, making it still stand so you shoot up, and then you're at this area with the crane. And around the crane, I started adding pathways once again to make it look like it was kind of flattened out. I added in all the pathways around it, and I sort of terraform a little bit of this mountain so that it kind of fits it better. I added in more of the pulsite, the darker grass, once again to give it texture. I go all the way around. Oh, don't break that. I go all the way around the crane, and then once again a little bit more terraforming, made it look a little more natural, just a little more, adding in more pathways and going through and just adding in all that good stuff. I'm also adding in some little lantern bits, I think is what I'm doing here. I'm adding some lanterns so that way it lights up and it's not just dark. adding in the pulsite around, again, to add it for texture. And I really quite like the way the pulsite looks. Is that, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. That would be embarrassing if I pronounced that miscorrectly. If I pronounced that miscorrectly. If I miscorrectly pronounced that this entire video. I also decided to add in like some piles of stone behind the crane. Yeah, that's what I do. I don't know if this really makes all that much sense, but it made sense to me at the time, so that's what we're doing. And also adding in a couple more lanterns because it's aesthetically pretty. I'm going through the entire pathways of this place. I'm going to readjust all of them, adding in texture and making them a little more flat where they need to be flat, adding in stairs where there need to be stairs, and etc, etc. So I go through to add in all the little pathways, add in all the textures because I like the way that looks. I did that in the last town and I bloody loved it. I love the pathway, so I do that. At this point, I'm staring at these houses. I'm like, well, what if I put the pulsite around the houses? I was like, would that kind of look cool? And this is sort of giving, and when I did this gives me the idea that it's like I once again, like the area was kind of like flattened out a little bit and prepared for like houses and stuff. And so then I just went with that idea. And I even went around the houses again with more pathway blocks to sort of once again convey that idea. And I decided I like that, and so I do that with every single house. I add in all the pulsite around, add in the pathways around. Everywhere. Even the little, center to get into the mines. The little, check-in, reception. Do that around every house. Every single little house I do this to, as you are seeing now, through this sort of like supercut of all these things. And I finally added stairs going from the like upper part of the town leading into the lower part of the town. So I'm adding stairs. And I will say I did screw up the stairs, which I recognized later on, and I just, as I was doing the slow walk through the town, but because you'll be able, yeah, you'll see that the stairs don't link up correctly there, but I fixed that. I fixed that later. This is the point where I kind of start losing my mind. See, as I said, that's kind of the point I start losing my mind. So I feel like I have no memory of what I was doing that time. But I know I was not talking to the bird. I don't know what I was doing. And I start cleaning up all the snow. But I know at some point I lost my mind during all of the terraforming part. Because that was not the voiceover version of me. That was just me. Once again, going through. And I decided at this point I didn't like the texture in the ground, which sounds weird, so I just talked about how much I loved it, but for this specific area I didn't like it, so I removed all of it so it may look more worn in, and I wanted it to look like it was just new, brand bloody new, so I left it, so I decided to not keep it. Now I'm doing decorating the houses, adding a little sitting area, kitchen, adding in a little bed, and again adding little bookshelves and everything. I kind of do a very similar thing for all the houses, adding little side tables. But I tried to make sure for all these houses, I wanted it to be like there's sort of a basic idea of what they wanted. There should be a bed, a little kitchen area, a sitting area, and that's kind of what I went with for what all the houses should be. I'm using diorite, some like smooth diorite for the kitchen. I added a campfire underneath the stove to make the furnace to make it look like it was actually cooking something I like, with a painting, some books, and a couple other little touches on those. Adding a few more touches to the entire building for the whole, cluttering up the counters and whatnot. And we're swiftly moving on. Counters, bookshelves, etc. We're doing all the same sort of things. Adding in the lanterns so it's not dark. I decided that was a stupid spot for that. Adding in a little kitchenette area, a bed, and we're moving on to another building. We have a bed and some bookshelves, so that you don't get bored, some flowers. I try to change up flowers every now and then. Once again, moving over another kitchen. And at this point, I kind of decided I really liked having the bookshelves above the kitchens as like the cabinets. So I kind of keep doing that a lot. Because I kind of liked it. So I keep doing it. And we're moving on to the teeny tiny little house. We're adding in the bed. And all this stuff. I'm trying to figure out where to put it in a sitting area. I decided that's too much room. And then I decided to just move on to the kitchen for this very moment. Moving over into this other house, adding in like a little I love doing this like where they look like they have little pillows on these couches. I love that. So I do that a lot throughout these. Once then we're moving on to the final building where it is like just a little, I don't know, like a little check-in area, a little check-in reception area. I tried doing this thing where I can make a lamp with a dragon egg, but I decided that these houses aren't big enough for that. So I pop into this little check-in reception area. I built up a little counter with a trapdoor leading into the back. I'm struggling to find my items. What the crud. This is me every time I try to build something. I can't find anything no matter how long I've played this game for. I put in a little book thing there, a chair, a flower pot, and I added a little carpet across the entire thing. I come up here, I add in like a little bookshelf for like the storage area deal. I add in some barrels. And I added a little chest, another barrel, and I think that was good. Now I'm going through and adding some lanterns to everywhere to kind of light it up. Have it be a little brighter. I go through adding all those lanterns. And I mean everywhere, throughout the entire town. I tried to give it to be overbearing. I recognize you see lanterns underneath this building, so I had pillows to it, but I decided I'm going to get rid of those because it looks stupid from the outside. And finally, I'm doing one of the very last things, and that is making the pathway from this town to the other town. So I decided the best way to do this was to make like a little elevator from this town leading down there, and then there'd be a little pathway connecting the two places up. So I make up a 2 little door elevator. Here, one with, of course, soul sand, one with magma blocks, so that way you would know. And it's kind of made some aims at the way as the other one. Now I added in a little quartz pathway initially, but then I kind of merged it into wood about halfway through. So it's like 2 woods merging there. And this is the final outcome of the town. Honestly, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. It's very different from how I normally build with that sort of rustic style of like the other houses and everything. So I think this turned out really great with such a very different style on my cover stone. I find funny how iron golem spawned on top of that house. Actually, I don't know why that was the spot spawned in, but it was. So as I said, this turned out really great in my opinion. I quite like it. I quite like our little mining town. I think it looks good. It's not the best, obviously. There's definitely some things I could improve on, but I'm quite happy with it. And so, I hope y'all are too. And finally, we come here to the little mining area at the very end. We go up through the elevator to show off the entire crane and how this looks. And I didn't add a lot of texture to all the stones like I did last time. Again, because I wanted to look new, which is why I removed the texture from pathways. So I decided to keep it all very sort of one tone. It was placed down brand new. And finally, I do a once little flyover the entire town. The entire brand new mining town. And look at it. It looks so different compared to the other town. Because if we fly right over here, and there's spoilers ahead, obviously. But this is what the other town looked like. It looked very small town, very rustic, had a lot of texture and everything, and was in the middle of this forest, whereas the other town has like no trees around it. It's very flattened out, has a lot of new sort of look to it. The towns are so very different, and I'm quite happy with how they both came out. And honestly, I just hope y'all enjoyed watching me making these new towns, as I enjoyed, you know, actually building these towns. It was really quite fun. And so I hope y'all have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!